Welcome back to the Black and Raw podcast. I'm your host, Tino Kada Tondarai Vunzabaya, and I'm not going to repeat that. Here's a podcast that's creating the dialogue and the space for black men to be their most authentic selves. Now, my guest today is Andrei Hall, and Andrei is a financial advisor that specializes in retirement asset distribution. Now, you might be thinking, Tino, why have you talked to someone that specializes in this? Well, the guy has been in finances for many, many years. The guy was in the financial industry during the 2008 financial crisis. So if you just think about it for 1 second, this man's got a lot of wisdom that he can share about finances, keeping your finances, making sure that, you're able to keep your wealth and enjoy life. And that's a lot of what our conversation actually centers around. We discuss topics such as, does being rich and wealthy make you happy? He talks about starting his business and how starting a business can be a way for you to grow your wealth and to be wealthy and to do things that you want to do in your life. Andrei also talks about how he recruits, what he looks for in an employee. He gives advice as well to younger audiences about finding the right culture for you whenever you go into a new job or are starting out in a new profession. And so Andrei and I talk about so many interesting things in this conversation. I know you're gonna love it. I really enjoy talking to Andrei, and you can just tell he's got such a wealth of experience in his field. And for any of those that know finances or that are in the financial industry, if you've heard of Ed Slott, and I hadn't heard of him until this conversation actually, but apparently he's quite a big financial advisor in the US, a top guy, he's everywhere. I just searched him up on the internet and I found so many articles about him, and he seems legit. And my guest today is a part of his mentoring group, his mentor group, and they have, monthly meetings, they've done trainings with him, and so you can tell that Andrei he's up there. He's up there with those financial advisors. So I think you're going to get a lot of good knowledge and good nuggets of gold from this episode. So give me a second. Let me show you what you've got to look forward to in this episode. So bear with me for just 1 second.
In America, at least, and I would assume, I don't know, I haven't paid as much attention, to be honest with you, with the CEOs in Europe, but in America, probably 70%, 80% started off in sales, because that's where you can shine, show what you can do, and it's based on numbers. And so that is something that if in fact you get the right skills from a sales standpoint, it's not going to help you inside that company, but when you go someplace else, when you start your own business. And I keep saying something about starting your own business, because unless you become a CEO, and very few become CEOs. I mean, very, very few become CEOs of major corporations. There are not a whole lot of them. And there's millions upon millions of us competing for those jobs. You're not going to get rich. You can earn a good living, but you're not going to get rich. And basically the people that are rich in America, for the most part, are the entrepreneurs. Okay, you got some CEOs, but then it's the entrepreneurs that are rich. So my father, I love him. He taught me a lot of things. He taught me how to be self-sufficient. He taught me how to go out there and do for myself, because in his whole life, he never handed me in cash $100.
Yeah.
Okay. And so he was just a person that was fair, but he never had a lot, but I wouldn't trade him for the world. And I say all of that to say that he taught me how to do for me and never quit, never give up, and to continue moving forward even when you're discouraged.
So guys, I hope you liked what you saw there. I had a really good conversation with Andrei, and I know you guys are going to enjoy this episode. If you want to seek Andrei's services, if you want to find out more about your finances and how you can keep your wealth, then go and check him out. I'll put all his details into the YouTube description, so you can go and have a look at them there. And please go and share this episode with people you think are going to be really interested, people that want to grow their wealth and that want to maybe start businesses, or people that are already starting businesses and want to think about how can I employ the right people. So I think you guys are going to get some real good value out of this episode. I know you're going to get some good value out of this episode. So please share it, put in the comments what you guys think of this episode. Please like, subscribe as well. I know I've asked a lot from you guys just in these last couple of sentences, words, but please don't do that for me. I really appreciate it. So here is my conversation with Andrei. So Andrei, welcome to the Black and Raw podcast. It's really good to have you on.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I know, that's good. That's good. How has your day been? It's early there in the morning for you, isn't it?
It's early, but it's 8:30. Started off early. Had my first meeting at 7 a.m. So I'm on track.
You're on track. No, that's very good to hear. That's very good to hear. And so I guess I wanted to start off with just exploring what life has been like for you living in California. When we talked, you said that you've been in California pretty much all your life. You've traveled lots of places as well, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, what's life like in California?
Well, you know what? California is a place where a lot of people want to come and visit and vacation. Myself, I like vacationing in Hawaii. I live in California, but I love being in Hawaii. But there's a whole lot of people that come to California for vacations with Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, and a number of other attractions, Universal Studios. So it's a great vacation spot. It's a sunny weather most of the time. This year, we've gotten more rain than we've gotten in 7 or 8 years or longer. But at the same time, like any place, once you get used to it, it's home, and it doesn't feel like a vacation spot, but it is a spot that a lot of people like to come to for vacations. But for me personally, I enjoy living here, wouldn't want to live anywhere else. A lot of people talk about the cost of living in California and the price of homes, but I'll give you a quick example. California, the homes are expensive. Definitely expensive. But at the same time, there are other states that have hurricanes and tornadoes.
Yeah.
Property insurance can be $12,000 to $15,000 a year. California property insurance is somewhere around $1,200 to $1,500 a year. So that $12,000 to $15,000 gets you about $200,000 to $300,000 more house just by not having to pay that. So again, you got to look at the total cost of everything, not just the cost of the purchase of the house.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, actually. Yeah, LA, as you said, yeah, it's a place where everybody wants to go to, isn't it? It's got that sort of, Hollywood has gave that mystique of LA, sort of like, let's go to California. You got Malibu Beach and all of that. I still haven't been to LA. I've been to Miami, which is a nice place, but also, you know, can succumb to what do you call it? They just recently had was it a hurricane they recently just had in Miami?
Not a hurricane, just a flooding. And
yeah.
If you live in around a cliff type area, mountainous area, you could have some mudslides, that kind of thing. We do have those when we get a whole lot of rain, and if there's been a forest fire and the vegetation and everything is gone and not protecting the soil.
Yeah, no, interesting. Yeah, definitely. And I guess what were sort of your early sort of childhood experiences growing up in California?
Well, you know what? My father was a career man in the Navy, and we traveled some, mostly back and forth to Hawaii several times. And I spent a total of about 7 or 8 years of my life in Hawaii,
That's why
actually.
you love Hawaii.
Well, you know what? Right now, I love Hawaii because of what I do when I go on vacation there. Just lay around the pool, get a massage every day, a facial every day. That's before I had the beard. But I don't know what a facial will be like with a beard. I have to
No,
figure.
neither. Yeah.
But at the same time, growing up in California and Hawaii was great. I mean, I have no complaints, no issues. Like any place else, you got to figure out how you navigate the environment that you're living in and make sure you can stay safe and out of trouble. But that's something you got to do no matter where you live in this day and age. And as far as Hawaii goes, it was fun. We lived, even though it was naval housing, surprisingly enough, it was only about 10 or 15-minute walk to the beach.
Oh, that's lush.
And so it was a fun time, enjoyable time. And what can I say? California and Hawaii is it's hard to
Yeah. You're right. You can't really complain, can you? You both for
nope.
sunny places, palm trees, good weather, good beaches. Yeah, definitely. No, definitely. Um, and so I guess you split your time sort of between Hawaii and California. And then I guess we were when we were talking, you were saying that you went to college, and that you played football at college. What was like, I guess we'll get on to sort of what happened afterwards, but how was it sort of going to college and playing football as well and stuff?
Well, you know what? It was, again, what can I say? Back in those days, it was fun, it was enjoyable. Um, um, we got into silly kind of trouble back in those, but at the same time, nothing serious or anything. But you got to walk around campus and everybody knew who you were, that type of
Yeah.
same time. Uh, it was it was fun, but when I look back, quite frankly, I realized I could have done more if I had focused more. And no real regrets, but at the same time, that's the one thing I would tell the young folks today. Keep your focus and understand where you're headed for, and make sure you're putting the efforts that you need to put into whatever it is to ensure that what you say your goal is in your mind, in your head, and what you want to do, it won't just happen if you don't lay it out and focus on what has to happen to enable that to happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's quite. I feel like we always love to sort of look back and be like, yeah, definitely could have worked harder. And then during the time, you're sort of thinking, you never really think about it, do you? When you're at uni or college, you're just sort of enjoying the time, enjoying the vibes. Like you've got all your friends around you. Yeah, you never really think about, oh, am I gonna regret sort of not working harder at college or at uni during the time? But it's always sort of a reflective thing, isn't it?
Well, you know what? It's definitely a reflective thing because shit, I thought I was working hard. I studied until it was finals time, but I thought I was working hard. But I was definitely there when it came to school dances and parties.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you look back now and say, the good news is that I did put in effort, but I was just commenting that without sacrificing enjoying school, enjoying and having fun in college, it's possible for all of us to really put in more effort and start planning out what we want to do in the next chapter of our life after college. And most of us don't think a lot about that. Some people, a few do. If you're going to be a doctor or something of that nature, you do have to start thinking about that early. But even a lot of people that end up being doctors didn't think about it early. So they're much older when they actually get their, when they finish their internship and everything else and all the education that they have to go through. If they had thought about it earlier, they could have finished earlier. But that's for all of us in every profession.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so, was it in when you were talking to me, you were telling me about your injury, and could you just tell my audience sort of what happened at that time? What was happening and going on for you as well?
Well, you know what? It's football is football. You're going to get hurt. Okay. The question is, how bad do you get hurt? But you're going to get hurt. And I just had an injury that to this day, my shoulder pops out. And so that basically, even though I continue to try to play, it basically eliminated my effectiveness. But at the same time, I was a solid player, but I wasn't going to be a professional football player.
Yeah.
But it was, I didn't have as much notoriety around the campus after I hurt my shoulder. But I wasn't going to be a professional football player. So, but I had fun. I mean, it was still fun and no real regrets. But basically, it's just typical that when you have those kind of injuries, today, if I had that kind of injury, the medical advances would have taken care of it, but not back then.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it wasn't sort of like you were, like how some people be like, oh, I could have gone pro if I didn't have this injury.
No.
Nah.
No, it wasn't going to happen.
No. Okay, then.
But I could have had more fun.
Yeah.
But professional wasn't going to happen. And so that didn't alter. It wasn't the altering point in my life because it didn't stop me from what was going to come next, which was figuring out what I was going to do out in the working world.
Yeah. So following on from that, what were those next steps that you were going to do and that I guess you did do in your working world?
Well, back then in the 70s, Blacks were just starting to get into corporate America. So our goal back at that time was to get a job with a prestigious company in the corporate world in advance. At the same time, when I say advance, there was not the recognition moving around from job to job back then. You wanted to, that's a good thing to do. Excuse me. But hiccups here, excuse me.
It's all right.
You would end up staying with that company. You hope to stay with that company for your entire career, which is something no one wants to do in this day and age, which I totally agree with and agree with. You need different experiences. And back then, if I had it to do all over again, I probably would have stayed 5 to 10 years at the most, probably closer to 5, and went out and started my own business. And that's what I would urge everyone to do. What you want to do is you want to go with a company that has an overall, first of all, you got to make sure it's the right culture for you. Okay, because a lot of people fail at companies not because of their skill levels or other factors, but more importantly, the culture is not right for them to be successful in. So you got to understand the culture. You also got to understand what are the things or the benefits really for working with that particular company, i.e., do they have a great new hire training program overall? If it's in a first level management kind of job or a sales type of job, and sales is a great way to start your career. I would urge anyone that's coming out of college to go with a company that has a great new hire selling program, because whatever you do, wherever you go, whatever kind of business you end up opening up, hopefully one day, you're going to need sales skills. And so you want to go with a place that has a great new hire training program overall, and especially a new hire sales skills training program.
Yeah. Oh, okay. No, that's quite interesting. And yeah, I guess you want to be in a place that's able to sort of build you up as a new person coming in. Like, you don't want to sort of just be thrown straight into the deep end, and sort of, because it can be quite nerve-wracking doing something you've sort of never done before, but coming into a new culture, a new work environment. And yeah, I think that's quite a good sort of I don't know, a good takeaway for anybody that's listening, sort of, when you're wanting to get out into the world of work, to look at that.
Well, what I would say is that you still are going to be thrown in to a certain degree. You want what you're going to a major corporation for in this day and age. Quite frankly, I think most of us should, if you're starting off now, is to prepare yourself for what's next. And to help prepare yourself for what's next, you need to acquire new skills over and above what you got in school. Mainly the skills that you got in college, unless it's engineering or you're a scientist or something, is basically that just tells the company you have the ability to learn. Okay? So now you need to be trained. And so you want to get certain skills that's going to prepare you for what you do next. And I would tell you, if you look at the CEOs in America, at least, and I would assume, I don't know, I haven't paid as much attention, to be honest with you, with the CEOs in Europe, but in America, probably 70%, 80% started off in sales, because that's where you can shine, show what you can do, and it's based on numbers. And so that is something that if in fact you get the right skills from a sales standpoint, it's not going to help you inside that company, but when you go someplace else, when you start your own business. And I keep saying something about starting your own business, because unless you become a CEO, and very few become CEOs, I mean, very, very few become CEOs of major corporations. There are not a whole lot of them. And there's millions upon millions of us competing for those jobs. You're not going to get rich. You can earn a good living, but you're not going to get rich. And basically the people that are rich in America, for the most part, are the entrepreneurs. Okay, you got some CEOs, but then it's the entrepreneurs that are rich in America.
And I guess the entrepreneurs end up being the CEOs of their own companies, isn't it? Like, if you want to become a CEO, it's probably easier to set up your own business. And then you can still call yourself a CEO as well of your own business, because you actually are. But so I guess for you, what was it like sort of being in the working world and then sort of transitioning to having your own financial firm?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, it was much more gratifying. And quite frankly, I probably work harder in a way in my own business, but it's work that I can enjoy doing. Quite frankly, in the corporate world, you're sitting through a lot of 8 to 10 hour meetings. And in those 8 to 10 hour meetings, for the most part, you're going through all the numbers and all the things that need to be done differently. And by the end of the first quarter of every year, in most companies, in most years, I won't say every year, but in most years, you're talking about how do we cut budget because we're not on track for earnings. And you're having to replan, redo, and that takes up enormous amount of time when you're talking about Fortune 500 companies. So I don't miss that at all.
Okay, yeah, that sounds long.
I don't miss that at all. So basically, when it comes to when you're running your own company, whether it's small or large, you can be very, very successful and earn a great living while being more in charge of your time. For me, that was important. When I left the corporate world, I decided I had a son that was just being born. He's 19 now.
Oh, nice.
And I wanted to be able to spend time with him. In the corporate world, I was traveling a lot. I spent probably 4 years or 250 days a year in hotel rooms, a 2 million mile flyer on several airlines. And what I wanted to do was to be there, taking him to school and picking him up. And I did that from kindergarten until, unfortunately, I let him get a driver's license as soon as he and he kicked me to the side.
He's like, "No, you're done."
But from kindergarten till then, I took him to school and picked him up when he got out of school.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, it gives you that nice flexibility, doesn't it? Like,
it does.
I think for my parents, they've set up their own business and they've been doing it for quite a while now. But they've been sort of given that freedom, like they can take my brother and sister to school and pick them up. I wasn't so fortunate. So they were working a lot sort of when I was younger. And yeah, it's just nice to sort of, I guess, be able to sort of choose your hours, to choose sort of, okay, I can go to my kid's baseball game or football game or basketball game, and I can sort of pick them up from school and see them. And like, it's just a really nice sort of, it's just a nice way to spend time with them, isn't it, really? Because you don't get as much time as you would like to. So those moments become even more sort of treasured.
They are. No regrets. When I went into this, what I'm doing now, basically the way it started was I had several employees that passed away.
Sorry for that loss.
Else passed away.
Yeah.
And everybody would always be like a deer in headlights as to what their next steps needed to be. So I started doing some research. A number of them would come to me and say, "What do you think? Should I do this? Should I do that? This advisor is advising me this way." And basically, I ended up saying, you know what? I got to figure out how to be able to help these folks when they come to me. Plus, I can help myself.
Yeah.
So I started really understanding and working through what people needed to do when they're in that particular kind of situation, because that's what was coming to me at the time. I wasn't trying to be a financial advisor overall, but I was trying to be able to advise people when they were in that kind of situation. And so when I decided that I wanted to leave the corporate world, I said, what do I enjoy doing? And I said, I enjoy helping people. I think I'm pretty good at it. And I just decided that that was the path I was going to go down, and which I did.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So what does it entail, sort of, you helping people with finances? Like, what are you actually doing with them?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, first of all, there's book learning and real world learning. The advantage I have is that I have both. And when I say book learning, there's a lot of exams you got to go through and pass through to become also a certified financial advisor, which probably, I think it's about 20% of the people that call themselves financial planners or certified financial planners.
20, that's low.
Level that you have to go through. But that's the book learning. The real world learning is I have the corporate experience. I have the experience of dealing with restricted stock and a lot of other things that go on in the corporate world. I have the experience of having owned over 20 homes. So that is the real world experience that I have, which has enabled me to be able to be well-rounded enough to help the people that I work with, because it really boils down to you start with comprehensive financial planning. In that comprehensive financial planning, you're going to really go through all the aspects of that person's life, not just what they want to invest in, but all aspects from a holistic standpoint. So that is what's so important when it comes to being able to keep people on track, get them on track and keep them on track when you're working with them from a advice standpoint. But the other thing that's really important is how do you minimize taxes, not only when you're saving for retirement, but in retirement, because it's not how much you make on your investments, it's how much you keep. That's much more important than what you make.
Yeah, no, definitely. Taxes, taxes are something else, aren't they? You need them, they make sense. But I think I remember hearing, I saw something today on the news actually, that Norway is losing a lot of its billionaires because of its capital gains tax, which I thought was actually quite interesting, that they tax so much to the billionaires. Like, nah, I don't want to live here anymore. Even though the country probably works really well and it's really nice, they're like, nah, that's just too much for me.
Well, you know what? And it works that way all over. In the U.S., there's certain states that don't have income tax. Yeah. So you have a lot of athletes and a lot of people with a lot of money moving to those states because they don't have state income tax. A state like California is up to about 10% for someone making a lot of money. So that's an additional, this thing for every 100,000 you earn, you're paying 10% to the state. And so if you're a billionaire and you're earning $1 billion, that's
a lot of tax
in a year. That's a lot. You just said it.
Definitely. So you mentioned taking a holistic approach in like addressing like all of your sort of finances and where you want to be. Was there a reason like you sort of wanted to take a holistic approach with people? Is that sort of the best way you think is to manage your wealth and to grow your wealth, is to have a holistic approach? Or?
Well, you got to look at it and say, okay, there's a thing about you want to have enough money to live the way you want to live in retirement. But at the same time, how do you get there? There's some people that say, I'm not going to spend money on anything or do anything along the way. So quite frankly, they're living a miserable life.
Yeah, that's boring.
To get there. So you want to look at things and understand everything about that person, what's important to them. And then you got to wrap around, and you have to be realistic now. You do have to be realistic wrap around, how do we get there? How do we get there in a way where you can enjoy life now and can enjoy life in the future? And that's what we look at.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's quite interesting. And I guess, do you think it's important to save up for retirement? I know I've heard some people say, oh, it's better just to make sure you have like passive income coming in when you're retired, or to invest in assets instead of putting money away because, you know, you've got sort of inflation and over time your savings erode. So like, yeah, what do you think? What's your view on that?
Well, obviously, you got inflation. Okay. And we're always going to have inflation. We've always had inflation. Some years a lot worse than others, but it's going to go up and down through your working years and in retirement. So you do have to make sure your money is earning definitely above what the inflation rates are. Else the value of your dollar is going down. I say dollar because talking US. The value of UK is, are they back to the pound or are they still, because
no, with the pound, yeah, or sterling, as they call it.
Okay, but you definitely got to make sure you're earning more on your money than what inflation is. But at the same time, it really boils down to, okay, there are people that feel like all I got to do is get rich, okay? But that doesn't bring happiness. You understand what it takes, what's happening while you're getting there, and once you get there, what is it that's going to make you enjoy life? And now I'm not a counselor, although I feel like sometimes I am, a psychiatrist or whatever. But at the same time, you really want to understand what's important to that person in that couple and figure out how do we really do things in a way that makes it so that you're satisfied with your life and your surroundings and your family. All of those things are part of getting to the financial state that you want to get to.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So yeah, because you can be rich and you can be, I mean, rich and famous, or you can just be rich and you can be really sad. I know that I've heard before that like some of the like world famous CEOs or stuff like that, like they have family problems, they have stuff going on at home because they've sort of just devoted all their time to becoming rich and not sort of, I don't know, I guess their priority was to become rich, but not sort of prioritizing maybe the other things that make you happy or that make you whole sort of as a person.
Well, you know what? And that's so very true. I mean, I haven't been perfect at it. None of us are perfect at it. And what you have in that situation is that, especially, it's funny, entrepreneurs probably don't spend anywhere close to the amount of time they should spend with their families in a lot of ways, a lot of times as they're building up that business. But I can tell you it's 10 times worse with a Fortune CEO.
Yeah.
That CEO is never, Fortune 500 CEO is never home, being male or female. They are out there. They are traveling. They are presenting at conferences. They are meeting with people. They are never home. And so it is much worse for them than anybody, you know, and anytime you're running a business, it's time consuming. But when you are a corporate CEO, it's much more time consuming because you know what? You not only have to do the right things with your organization, and that takes an enormous amount of time. You got stockholders, you got directors to please. There's a lot of people you got to please. So even though you're at the top, you still have to answer to people.
Yeah.
And even you have to answer not only to the board, into your staff to a certain degree, but you definitely got to answer to the stockholders.
Yeah, and then also the governments as well. You have to also, I guess, answer to them as well. You sort of, I guess, you're always on edge that we've got a lot of balls holding up in the courts. That didn't make any sense, but you got a lot of balls in the air that you're sort of juggling, isn't it? I guess as a CEO of 500. Yeah, I don't know if I'd ever want to be it. I would rather, for me, like I would want to be like I've sort of seen that the lifestyle my parents have, and I think I would like to sort of be where they're at. I remember there was I think this was sort of self-pressure on myself. And I guess, I don't know, I'll ask you if you ever had it, but I remember when I was doing my GCSEs, I was like revising and stuff like that hard. And I think my dad came into my room one day and I was just in tears. I was just bawling because I was like, oh, how am I ever going to sort of I didn't even know why I was thinking about providing for my family at such an early age. But I was like, oh, how am I sort of going to be able to live up to you guys? How am I going to be able to provide for my family and stuff like that? And yeah, I don't know. Have you ever felt, I guess, a pressure to sort of do that? To, I don't know, live up to a standard that you think that you maybe put on yourself?
Well, you know what? I grew up, my stepfather raised me from the age of 6. He was my father. I say his stepfather, but he was my father. As I said a little bit earlier, he was a career man in the Navy, and he fought 3 wars, World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam. And he never made a lot of money in the service, especially back then, and outside the service. I made more money than him when I turned 20.
Wow.
Okay, I was
That's
out
crazy
at that time. He was out of the service then. But I remember when I needed money for books. And he told me, well, he didn't tell me. He took me to the garage, pointed to that push lawnmower, because I never had a power lawnmower. To that push lawnmower that hadn't been sharpened since I started using it at 6 years old, and said, you know how you earn money all the way through junior high and really elementary, junior high, and high school, you still can do it. And so my father, I love him. He taught me a lot of things. He taught me how to be self-sufficient. He taught me how to go out there and do for myself, because in his whole life, he never handed me in cash $100.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it was, he was just a person that was fair, but he never had a lot, but I wouldn't trade him for the world. And I say all of that to say that he taught me how to do for me and never quit, never give up, and to continue moving forward even when you're discouraged.
Yeah, those are some good life lessons. I don't really love dads. They're there for you when you need them, honestly.
Well, I was a little mad at him at the time when he pushed lawnmower again. But obviously, even not just now, a few years later, I can laugh about it. But at that moment, I wasn't
like you were just like, why? Just give it to me. Just give it to me. I wanted to go back in terms of when you talked about sort of running, that you're now running your own firm and starting your own business. And I think that's really good. And I wanted sort of for people that maybe are starting their own businesses and now having their own teams, like what do you value in when you're recruiting new employees? Like what do you look for when you're sort of wanting to know who you're bringing onto your team?
Well, number one, you want to make sure, especially because It's not like in the corporate world where, quite frankly, you end up going through a lot of people. People come and go in the corporate world. I don't care what company it is, a Fortune 500 company, whether it's at the lowest levels or the highest levels, people come and go. You want people who you can gel with, who you think can work on their own to sort through the clutter and to be able to handle things that are challenging, but at the same time, they know how to get through it. You want people who, or quite frankly, I like people who are happy.
Yeah, there's a good trait.
I like people who are happy. I like people who are happy, but serious about what they do. And they understand that, we can have fun, but at the same time, they understand that this is business and you got a job to do, and they are up to the task or feel they're up to the task.
Yeah.
So I would say I'm really looking for someone that is open to challenges, open to learning, open to understanding that in small companies, we don't have all of these training programs that they have at major corporations. Although I do have an advantage, Hall Wealth Management Group, my company, is my business, but at the same time, I have a broker-dealer who is LPL Financial. And LPL Financial they do all the compliance, and they supply a lot of training programs that I can utilize for my new hires.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. Definitely. And I like how you sort of said that you want people that are happy, but you also want people that are serious about the work. Because I think you can be like, I don't know, I think as sort of in a team environment, you definitely need to be able to have those moments where everybody's gelling, you're laughing. It just builds camaraderie, doesn't it? But then also you need to know that, right, when it gets down to it, you're going to do the work. You're going to bring money to the company and add value. And I think both of those things add value in different ways, which sort of enhance your business and your team.
Well, you know what? Just like with my clients, they're serious about why they came to me. They're serious about trying to figure out, how do I do better? How do I do something differently? How do I get prepared for the future? But at the same time, you want them to be happy doing that. You don't want them to be sad that whole time, or can't do this, I can't. You want to figure out ways that enable them to achieve their goals and objectives, and to ultimately get to where they want to get to, but have fun doing it. I look at a lot of folks like a Steve Jobs, brilliant man, did a lot of great things, but he would trade places with all the billions he had. He died at a young age in his 50s. He would trade places with any of us today and give up all of those billions. I guarantee you he would have. In fact, he could be here today still alive versus dying in his 50s.
Yeah. I wonder if sort of any of the stresses, or sort of being sort of the head of Apple, I wonder if that contributed to his early death or anything else. I think he got cancer, so I'm not too sure, but you never.
I don't think so. No. It probably put some stress on him that might have contributed a tiny bit, but not put some stress. You definitely have stress.
Yeah.
But that wasn't his issue. It was, the body.
Yeah.
There's things that happen in all of our bodies that doctors can't explain, and we never know why certain people end up with certain problems versus other people eating the same foods, living in the same house, don't have those problems.
Yeah. Just like how some people, in terms of COVID, that, you had couples sleeping in the same bed. One had COVID, one didn't have COVID. And you're like, what? How the hell does that work? Or two family members get it. And my brother never got COVID, even though everyone else in the family got COVID. So yeah, the body does weird things. You never really know, do you?
Yep. You don't.
No, you don't. I wanted to just ask you two more questions. The first one was, what are the secrets to wealth management?
Well, you know what? I wish I had a silver bullet. There's no silver bullet when it comes to wealth management. There really isn't. But there are people who know how to get people to their goals and objectives better than other people. In every profession, you have good attorneys, bad attorneys. You have good doctors, bad doctors. You have good financial advisors, bad financial advisors, poor financial advisors. So in every profession, you got people that can really help you, and those that you can go to that will really hurt you. And basically, when it comes to, in a nutshell, when it comes to being a good financial advisor, you have to go work with someone that's going to enable you to understand what are the strategies you can put in place now while you're saving. What are the strategies you can put in place once you have accumulated enough to keep those dollars? What are the strategies you can put in place in the when you're in retirement and withdrawing those dollars? And it all boils down to one significant thing, and that is to keep more versus giving out more. I hate to say it this way, to the government. You want to keep what you can, maximize what you keep versus paying it out. So it's more important when you look at everything. I will say it's definitely more important to keep what you got versus what you earn. Earnings are important, but it's easy to pay out so much extra in taxes that you don't have to, not just for you, but for your heirs and so on down the road. So it's so important for you to have the right strategies in place before retirement, in retirement, and after you pass away. If you don't have those things in place, the government's going to get a much bigger share of what you got.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I don't want to get into trouble with any of the government, so I'm not going to mention about how people can do that. But I guess I'm gonna add one more question onto this. What sort of resources would you say would you recommend for people to sort of think about wealth management and starting to see how can they sort of keep their wealth?
Well, there are some books by a gentleman by the name of Ed Slott, who is considered, at least in the U.S., I can't give you any names in the U.K. Ed Slott is considered the #1 expert in America when it comes to IRA planning, to retirement planning. And this is according to from the Wall Street Journal to Kippenger's to from CNBC to CBS to
some big names,
a number of other stations, Fortune magazine, a number of places would say he is the #1 guru. And so there are books by him, Ed Slott, SLOTT, that you can read. So I would say go there and start there. Then you can work with, he has a group of advisors. There's hundreds of thousands of advisors, but there's about 400 of us that have been trained by him. We go through 2 conferences a year of 3 days in person. We're tested twice a year. We go through training once a month, webinars once a month, training at least once a month. Sometimes it's more than once a month, depending on what's happening out there. But we're constantly having to keep up because things change. And so it's important that you're working with people that have the right resources and training. And the resources I have, he has a group of attorneys, tax experts, CPAs that I can call upon when I need support. No one knows everything. I don't know everything. No one knows everything. But I know enough, and I know when I don't know something, who to call.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's quite important. Like, you sort of have to have the humility to be like, I don't know, I don't have all the questions, or I don't have all the answers, but I can go and find the answers. You know what I mean? I can rely on others that maybe can give me those answers, or maybe you can provide those answers, and you're that person that people go to for that.
Well, I can see it this way, in that I will give you the answers, whether I know them right up front or I have to go get them.
Yeah.
I will give you the answer.
And so for my final question, this is what I ask all the guests. Say if there's a young Black boy listening to this episode, what advice do you think you can give them, either from this conversation or something that you know, help them with an understanding of themselves?
Well, first of all, have faith in yourself, have confidence in yourself. Don't let anyone take away your confidence. Okay? People will try to do it in subtle ways a lot of times, and sometimes they're overt. But don't let anyone destroy your confidence level. One of the things you see with athletes, a lot of the best, from a Tom Brady to a number quarterback in the U.S., pitchers, baseball pitchers, it's all about confidence. There's a lot of people with the same skill level, but not the same confidence level, be it football, basketball, baseball, other sports. That's number one. Number two, a young person growing up today, the parents got to start it, but make sure they know how to write. They know how they do well in English in school, and they do well in math. And then they have to maintain that by the time they get to middle school, junior high, high school, and on beyond, they have to maintain that. The parents have to help them maintain it, but they also got to start them off on the right path. And that is that area, math, English, and also, when you get the opportunity, encourage your child to speak in front of the class. When teachers are calling on students, get up and speak. Get up and speak in front of the school. Run for school offices. Learn how to speak in front of groups. If you do those things really well, math, English, learn how to speak in front of groups, you're on the right track to be successful in a lot of areas, a lot of fields. The next thing is, you want to start figuring out, as it doesn't mean you know exactly what you're going to do, but start thinking about the things you might enjoy. Go and talk to people that are in different professions. You'll be surprised how many people you can talk to. You can just look them up and say, hey, I'm a high school student. I want to interview you. I want to write a paper on you. Some executive in the corporate world, just by looking up and going to the corporate website and looking up different people and look at their background and tell them you'd like to write a paper on them, because you always got to write papers on different things. And so I would do things of that nature. The other thing is, don't let people tell you that things are a dumb idea that you think you might want to do one day. If that was the case, we wouldn't have an Amazon, because no one would have told Jeff that was a good idea. That could work. No one would have talked about Facebook being a good idea. No one would have said Instagram was going to be a good idea. No one would have said any of those kind of things were going to be successful. So you have to understand that a lot of people don't have that vision. And I'm not saying all your ideas are going to work, but you have to understand that a lot of people don't have the vision to see what you're seeing when you come up with a thought or come up with something that you think can work. Now, it may not work, but you don't give up after the first time either. So those are the kind of things I would tell someone young, Black. You got to make sure you start the journey early versus later. If you can. It doesn't mean that it's ever too late to start. Look at Ray Kroc of McDonald's. He was in his 60s when he invented, I shouldn't say invented, but he made McDonald's what it was. Yeah. And so it doesn't mean you can't do it later in life, but it's much better to do it earlier in life.
Yeah, true. And then you can enjoy more of your life as well, can't you, when you do it earlier in life? So yeah, thank you, Andrei, for coming onto the podcast. I have really enjoyed talking to you, and I think it's going to be actually really interesting when people get to listen to this. So yeah, thank you for taking time out of your morning for me. I had a really good conversation.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it, and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. And so that is the end of the episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed that episode. I really enjoyed talking to Andrei. I usually enjoy talking to all my guests. I can't lie to you. I don't think there's been a guest where I haven't enjoyed talking to or had an interesting conversation with. Obviously, there are some which are like, man, that's definitely been the best conversation I've had, or I loved talking to that guy, like our energies vibed, or whatever we were talking about just was aligned with both of our interests. So yeah, there's some that are better, but I really enjoyed talking to Andrei. He has such a wealth of experience, as you heard in that episode, and the fact that he's also aligned with Ed Slott, who is a seasoned professional in the financial industry. I mean, for anyone that's in the US and that wants to think about growing their wealth and keeping their wealth, then Andrei's your guy. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please go and share it. Please subscribe. Please like. Put some comments into the comment section. I don't know what I did there. Yeah, put some comments into the comment section. Tell me what you thought, or even just have a discussion about finances in there. I would love to see some engagement under there too. So I always put some resources onto the description, onto YouTube, or even if you're whatever platform you listen to the podcast, there's always descriptions. There's always resources in the description, and I've actually got some books here for you that I think are really good for finances. This one, I don't even need to read it out, or who's by Rich Dad Poor Dad. Come on, anyone knows Rich Dad Poor Dad is stuff. So there you go, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Go check that one out. I've also got another one, which I can't lie, I kind of got bored of reading this one. Not bored, it's a good book, but I think because I had already read quite a few books about finances, it sort of repeats the same stuff. But if you do want a book that is good about investing and keeping your money and stuff, this is a good book. As I said, I did get bored reading it because a lot of the knowledge was the same. But that doesn't deny that's not a good book. So this one is called How to Own the World, a Plain English Guide to Thinking Globally and Investing Wisely by Andrew Clegg. So go and check that book out. And then also Broke Millennials, Takes on Investing, A Beginner's Guide to Leveling Up Your Money by Erin Lowry. And Erin has actually got some other books as well about your finances. So there's really good resources on that. So here's that one for the audience to have a look at. So go check those out. I know you're going to get some really good nuggets of value. You're going to get some really good information from all those books and from this conversation and from some of the other resources that I'm going to put on my website too, which is www.blackandraw.co.uk. You can also find those in the show notes too. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. Please go and like and subscribe, share it, put some comments into the comment section, and we'll talk soon, guys.